In the next hour, we want to put a smile on your face, elevate your endorphins, and bring you happiness. Welcome to Say Yes, Be Happy with Nathalie Botros. We spend so much of our lives chasing happiness, it might just be where you least expect it to be. Nathalie and her guests are going to show you how and where to find it. And now, your host, Nathalie Botros.
Everyone, I'm Nathalie Botros, your host. Welcome to my podcast, Say Yes, Be Happy, where each week I bring guests from different fields and we talked about life, about the positivity, happiness, and finding silver lining. And I know that summer is here, quarantine is over, we all want to go out and we all kind of gain weight during the quarantine. And I said, maybe we should talk about weight loss and like how to reverse inflammation. And for that purpose, I got an amazing guest. She joined us today, and she's actually one of the top nutritionists that I know. And I want to give you a little bit about her history, what she does. So she's, as I said, one of the top health and fitness expert, as well as the top diet and nutrition expert by Huffington Post. She has 3 amazing books and she's best-selling her books. One of them is, let me tell you a little bit, How to Fight Fat Inflammation, Fire Up Your Fat Burn, and Beginner's Guide to Intermittent Fasting and the Ketogenic Key. She's known as the Inflammation Terminator. I love that term, really, and has made it her mission to educate the public on the toxic effects of certain foods and lifestyle choices and how they create inflammation in the body, resulting in weight gain and poor health. Her expertise is often featured in TV shows and on magazines like Oprah.com or Dr. O's Life magazine. And today she said yes to be on my show. So I'm asking all of you to welcome my guest, Lori Shemek. Hi, Lori.
Hi there, Nathalie. Thank you so much for having me. Hey, everybody. It's so nice to be here. Really.
So it's an honor, like after all these people that you're on my show, I feel very honored. And like, I have like so many questions and I know that my listeners have a lot of questions too. But before everything, let's talk about your story, like Inflammation Terminator. I love the term. It's like really a good one, And like, what is inflammation? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. So I hope you all can hear me. We have a little bit of technical difficulty going on right now. But my story is really very similar to a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, but I was raised with a single mother and 2 younger brothers. And my father was missing from the picture. We had very little money coming in. And you can imagine the stress my mother was under trying to raise 3 young children all on her own. And so her lifestyle choices were not healthy. They were really, really essentially ruining her health with the inflammation she had going on. And so needless to say, I remember just literally walking into her bedroom, seeing her laying there in the dark, just suffering. And I was so young, but I knew intuitively, even at that age, that she could make different choices. Mm-hmm. But of course, I was too young to guide her. And, she smoked a pack and a half of cigarettes a day. She was verging on obesity. She had a horrible diet, of which sugar and white flour comprised the most of. And she just, it was just a sad situation. The stress, if many people don't know, is very inflammatory in and of itself. So time went on, and my mother sadly died at the very young age of 36, leaving behind 3 young children with literally nowhere to go. So she had no family in this near us. They were all out of state. Mm-hmm. And of course, again, my father was missing. And so the 3 of us children were separated and different states, never to live together again. And so I say this only to demonstrate the power of choice, because my mother is not unlike many people who feel like this is their lot in life, this is the hand they've been dealt, and that is the furthest thing from the truth. And if, had I been older, I would have been able to guide her differently. But, it's something that her passing really sparked my passion to help other people understand that they do have choice and that they can make changes to their health and their mindset. It's not that difficult. It really isn't. I think we all put up these barriers, these obstacles
Of
in
course.
front of us, thinking before we even try the right way that things just aren't going to work out for us. So, I think it's just part of what drove me to go into the helping profession and nutrition and health and write books to help other people in a larger capacity.
Yeah. So you change, like it's true that a lot of people use their background or like their growing as an excuse to not take over their life. And actually you did it. And I see that right now you're
True.
sending the message to everyone and trying to help everyone who's like kind of struggling with inflammation or weight loss. The question is like, I know that we hear inflammation, weight loss, everybody knows that. What is inflammation? Can you explain us what are the types of inflammation and how we can cure them basically?
Right. Yeah. So that is the key. So, knowing the different types of inflammation is important. So, there are two types of inflammation and a third type that I'll talk about in a second here. But the first type is called acute inflammation, and it's a very necessary, important component of our immune system. So, without it, literally, we'd be sitting ducks, we wouldn't be alive. So, we need acute inflammation to help us heal. So let's take a cut on the finger. If you cut your finger, an enormous amount of inflammatory molecules are released, and soldiers, if you will, rush to the site. They repair the wound heals, the inflammation goes away, the wound goes away, everything, all is well, right? That's acute inflammation, and we need it. And then the next type of inflammation is called silent or chronic inflammation. And this is the type that most people have somewhat heard of, and they know it's not that
Yeah.
great. But its very name, silent, is very dangerous in and of itself, and that's because we don't know it's there. I mean, 75% of the population is walking around with inflammation and they have no idea. So silent inflammation is the core underlying cause of most illness, disease, faster aging, and weight gain. And that's another thing people don't realize, is that inflammation, this low grade chronic inflammation, promotes more fat storage. And so this gets me into the third type of inflammation, which is what I call fat inflammation. I've written a whole book on it,
Yeah.
and it's where fat cells, they actually promote this low grade inflammation within the body. And the more weight you put on, the more inflammation you have. So when you are overweight, you have these, like silent inflammation, you have
Mhm.
this trickle of inflammatory molecules that are released. And it is this that really slows down the metabolism, causing weight gain for you. And of course, we all know that as we gain weight, we gain more weight. And what many people don't realize is that not only are we gaining weight, and it's not, we don't like it, it's unhealthy as well, and it's putting more fat storage down the road.
Okay, so if when we gain weight, we gain even more fat and it creates more fat inflammation and then like more weight and then like it's a vicious circle. Is that correct? Did I understand it right?
Right, it is. Yeah, it is, absolutely. And and it's what's so great about knowing this is that if we reduce this excess inflammation in the body, then we are really optimizing our health. We're optimizing brain health, gut health, and the list goes on, and our weight, of
Yeah.
course. And so it's using the right types of foods and knowing what to do in order to do this. And I have to say that it is crucial, literally crucial, for us as human beings to keep that inflammation as low as possible. We need a little bit, okay? And we need our own endogenous antioxidants to be able to do what they do.
Hmm.
So if having the right lifestyle choices and also keeping that and allowing your own innate body to heal you is very important as well, because what happens is a lot of people are taking an enormous amount of anti-inflammatories, for example, and they're not letting their body help heal them.
And when they take, for example, so all these creates problem in their body, their knees, or like any muscle, any joint, because like it creates inflammation. So that's like one of the signs to know that we have inflammation. Like, what are the signs besides weight
Well,
gain?
yes, that is chronic inflammation.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah. So that is more of an isolated type of inflammation.
Okay.
So if you have knee pain, it doesn't mean that you have circulating cytokines or something that's going to affect your health. But
Hmm.
it's more about, say, the visceral fat in your belly. So if you have belly fat, that means that you have visceral fat, which is what you see on the outside is not the end of it. Okay.
Yeah.
The other part you don't see is what's wrapped behind the belly, the organs, essentially.
Hmm.
And it is this type of fat that is very inflammatory, and it's releasing a whole lot of those inflammatory molecules. So this is what's promoting a lot of what we're seeing now across the world. Essentially, is we're seeing more weight gain and more inflammation and more weight gain, and it's a vicious cycle, really.
Yeah. So, what can we do to prevent, cure, or like terminate inflammation? I mean, I know, I believe with food and with other things, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can actually stop the inflammation literally in its tracks if we choose the right types of foods and targeted supplementation and also movement. And what a lot of people don't realize is that movement actually reduces inflammation in the body. And this is why exercise is one key component, along with diet, that is just vital in terms of reducing inflammation. So, we have our own, as I mentioned earlier, our own antioxidant supply that is going to literally, when we exercise, it's going to be reducing that inflammation, and why we
Yes.
do so well with exercise. And one
Yeah.
of the reasons it's the most underutilized health prescription out there.
Yeah. So, exercise, any kind of exercise, or would you advise, like something else, some other exercise, like, I don't know, like any exercise, or like it's like cardio we should do?
Yeah, so what essentially people should do is just get a little breathless. You don't have to go all out. You do not. You just need to get a little breathless, and most days of the week. So that means walking fast. That could be, whatever excites you in terms of dancing or playing basketball, bicycling, whatever it is. Just make sure you do most days of the week, and for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes at a time. Remember, if you do too much and you do it too long, then we start creating more inflammation in the body. So we want that sweet spot, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay. So not too much, just the
uh,
middle.
and so one that I have found that is actually wonderful is it's called high intensity interval training, but don't let the name scare you, because what it is you just do, it's like a basic, just give you a basic one that's super easy. You go all out, whatever that means to you, however fast you can go, do that for 30 seconds.
Hmm.
You go back down to a slow to moderate pace for 90 seconds, and you do that only 8 times, and that is it. That is roughly that's 15 minutes right there, and it's super easy. It's not challenging to the degree that, say, jogging for 45 minutes
Of
would be.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I always say to people to dance, because like, you don't see time passing, you're out of breath, but
Right.
you don't care. And then like
Right.
it releases your happiness hormone. So like all in
Yeah.
one, reduces
Yep.
inflammation and you're happy.
Yeah, I know it's very true. So and it promotes, that's why, a lot of people mistake and exercise for hard work, but they forget what happens when you stop. Okay.
Yeah,
All the good things you've got, like you said, the happiness hormone, the serotonin, the dopamine,
of course.
the better health, the better breathing that you're creating. So, it's just wonderful to do it. So know that you are reversing inflammation in your body when you exercise. And if you have sore knees and you have knee pain, for example, and you say, well, it hurts to move, it's still important for you to move if you can. Okay, no matter what you do, try to move. It's not going to damage your joints unless you are told by your doctor not to move. So make sure you move, because when you do, you're strengthening your joints, say your knees, right? You're strengthening the joint muscle, all
Hmm.
right? And you're promoting more blood flow to the area, oxygen, nutrients, and you're also promoting more cartilage growth. And so that's going to only help you. Same with your feet, any joint, really, make sure you use it as well.
Okay. So basically moving, but don't take an excuse to have like problems with your knees. This is especially for a lady
Right.
that I know who's my mom.
Ah,
It's like
listen,
everything,
mom.
like all moms, they're like, I'm in pain. I cannot do. I'm like, no, you have to do to get it to make it stronger.
Exactly, definitely. Yes, my father-in-law was that way. Yeah, he wouldn't. He just said, "Nope, and nope." If my own grandmother said, "If the good Lord wanted me to move at 100 years old, I'd be moving."
it's, I mean, like
And
I
I said,
understand.
"Okay, grandma."
That's so funny. But yeah, so we're gonna take a short break. We're talking with Lori Shemek about reversing inflammation and weight loss. And when we come back, we're going to continue to, we just talk about exercise, but what I want to talk about the food that we should intake and food that we should completely avoid. See you just after the break.
You're listening to Say Yes, Be Happy. To reach our show today, we invite you to phone in to 1-866-472-5788. That's 1-866-472-5788. Or send an email to bvg@thebon-vivantgirl.com. Now, back to Say Yes, Be Happy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nathalie Botros, your host. I'm discussing with Lori Shemek about losing weight, fighting inflammation. And just before the break, she was telling us about the importance of exercise, but not pushing it. Like do most of the days during the week, but not more than 20 minutes. You don't need to, just like you have to be out of breath. So now I want to talk about what everyone wants to know. What should we eat? What we should not eat?
Yes, absolutely. So we all know what we're not supposed to eat, but I'll just go through it really quickly. So we know sugar. Okay, sugar is like there. So there are two foods that we should not eat, and that is refined processed oils, cooking oils, and sugar. Okay, and
Mhm.
I'm going to set that aside, those two aside, and come back to them in a minute. So we want all the refined processed foods out of our diet, because really what's happening is you are creating this low level inflammation with these foods, because for one, there are no nutrients in
Yeah.
these foods, very little. And so the body then cries out for nutrition, and you start craving these very foods. It's really a horrible, vicious cycle. So we want to stop all the junk food, the sugar, the processed oils. We want to, even some of, like, you see a lot of these low carb mixes and things like that, keto mixes and all. Now, even that food, even though it's low in carbohydrates and not using sugar, is a better choice, but is still going to cause some inflammation in the body, because it's not really that great for you, when you eat that much of that type of food at one time. So we want to stay away from that type of food. What we do want to eat is a lot of omega-3 fatty acids via, wild caught fish such as salmon, or trout, rainbow trout, sardines, anchovies. These are foods that really, all seafood really, but these particularly
Hmm.
have omega-3 in them, and it is this omega-3 that stops the inflammatory process. And it is also then important not only to stop the inflammatory process, but when you go through inflammation, over excess inflammation day by day, you're damaging tissue in the body, right? Any protein in the body. So what you want to do then is repair it with polyphenols and antioxidants. And this is crucial because if you're just stopping the inflammation, you're missing out on an important opportunity to heal it. Okay, so and you get those foods via blueberries, dark chocolate. You want leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables. I, in fact, highly recommend cruciferous vegetables every single day because it has sulforaphane that promotes glutathione in the body. Glutathione is a master antioxidant throughout the
Hmm.
body. Extremely important to add in these cruciferous veggies, and there's a lot of them. There's arugula, broccoli, cauliflower, bok choy. These are just examples. And then, you want, in terms of fruit, you don't want a lot, okay? Because what you're trying to do is to really move into less dependence upon, you don't want to be a sugar burner, essentially, is what you want to be,
Yeah.
a fat burner. So when you're eating a lot of excess, even whole fruit, you then become more of a sugar burner. And I can go into why excess fruit is not a healthy choice. Whole fruit in moderation is fine, but
Yeah.
most people don't do that. They'll eat like a whole half a watermelon, something like that.
So, I mean, what is like the good quantity? Because we don't eat
Of
sugar, and
fruit,
if like we feel like something sweet, it's like
yeah.
how much, like, for let's say watermelon, you were saying how much watermelon can we eat?
Like one slice would be fine. One like pie shaped slice
Okay.
is good. I don't recommend high sugar fruits generally.
Hmm.
But if you must have them, I would say, a half a banana every so often as a treat is good
Hmm.
because you want to get your dependence off of things that are that sweet, right?
Yeah.
So that and the reason is because when we have an excess of sugar, which means carbohydrates too, everything is condensed essentially to glucose. And so when we run out of storage room in our muscles and in our liver, uh, there is no place for that sugar to go, right? So then in the liver, it is then turned into fat, okay? And
Okay.
that's why there is so much inflammation running around within the body because, again, those fat cells are, this fat is becoming an inflammatory problem. And on top of which, we don't want to become uh, insulin resistant. We want to be insulin sensitive. And that is your whole goal because insulin sensitivity is perhaps the best marker of optimal health out there. And once you get to that insulin sensitivity, you then can eat fruit, like, not with abandon, but, more so than somebody who's literally trying to lose weight. What their goal is to get to becoming insulin sensitive. So anyway, we've got, the leafy greens and we have you want to tamp down on the excess fruit. A half a cup of berries are great. But again, you don't want too many. Fruit juice is an absolute no. Many people think it's healthy.
Yeah, it's full
It's
of sugar, right?
it's liquid sugar
Yeah.
essentially. It's very unhealthy for you.
Yeah.
It's an overload on your liver for one. But like for example, this is what many people believe. They're going into the grocery store. They want to buy healthy food, and so they go in and they pick up some yogurt, they pick up some whole wheat bread, and they pick up some fruit juice, like orange juice, right?
Hmm.
And so, right, those three things right there are creating inflammation within the body, and that's just breakfast for somebody. Okay, so you've got the fruit juice, which is promoting inflammation. The whole wheat bread is just packed with sugar. And then we've got the yogurt, which is also has more sugar than a candy bar. Okay, that bread can raise your blood sugar as much as 2 tablespoons of sugar. So it's very important to look at labels, make sure you're buying products that do not have added sugar in them.
Okay. Yeah. But yogurt too, you said, has a lot of sugar?
Yes. Yogurt is one of the worst products you can eat because many people don't realize it has that much sugar in it, right? It is truly awful unless you get the plain yogurt.
Okay. The plain yogurt is fine. For example, like the
Yes.
drain, like plain yogurt total, like it's fine. Okay.
Yes. And what I do is I'll defrost frozen berries in the refrigerator and they get nice and soft and there's a lot of juice in the package and you just pour some of that juice and some of those soft berries
Hmm.
into the plain yogurt, mix it around and you are good. And you can add cinnamon to further reduce not only the blood sugar in your body but the inflammation as well.
Okay. So, and the bread, I mean, if we crave bread, like carbs, like, but I mean, like not like
Yeah.
refined white, like what shall we do? Like, what shall we get? Don't tell me cauliflower. I know that you have like other options because some people, it's like, they're like, no way cauliflower. I love it, but they don't.
Yeah, no, people don't. And the thing that I have found is that there are some new keto breads that have come out, a
Yeah.
couple of them that are actually they just have a few ingredients and they are very good. So that and also pay attention to your carb intake as well during the day because once you do, you'll have a handle on how many more carbs you can eat or where you need to cut back.
Mhm.
And we can go into the keto choices as well. But so I've made my own bread. You just, unfortunately, bread and pasta are the two things that are just kind of off. They're really meant for just treats once in a while.
Yeah.
Once in a while, but
Yeah, I mean,
it just
like
depends.
not like,
We're
yeah,
all
don't put
free.
it every day. But for example, for myself, I know that if I start eating carbs, I'm hungrier and hungrier. It's the same one with sugar. Actually, when I
Yeah,
eat sugar, I have a headache, and then like I
yeah.
have a sugar crush,
That's
and
what.
then like the appetite opens up again,
Yeah,
right?
and that's a really good point you bring up, Nathalie. It's, when you eat the sugar, you eat the carbohydrates, your blood sugar spikes super high and then it drops super fast, much like throwing a ball up in the air and watching it fall rapidly to the ground. That's your blood sugar on sugar. And it's when it hits the ground, that's when your blood sugar level drops and you are craving anything to bring that blood sugar level back up. That's your body doing what it's supposed to do, which is create balance. So you
Yeah.
want a higher blood sugar, but that darn sugar dropped it to the floor. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to eat in such a way that prevents those cravings. And that would be adding protein to every meal. And that would also mean healthy fat,
Hmm.
such as like an omelet with avocado would be a great choice to sustain a person for a few hours, for 3 hours without eating. And that's another issue that I think a lot of people nowadays do that's promoting weight gain, and especially during COVID, was the snacking, the continuous
Yes.
snacking, because what you're doing is you're uh, secreting insulin. Every time you put something in your mouth, you're secreting insulin. And whether it's keto, whether it's paleo, gluten free, it doesn't matter. You are doing that. And what we want to do to optimize health, remember the insulin sensitivity,
Yeah.
we want to keep that insulin as low as possible uh, most of the time. So if we are eating 24/7, which the majority of people are doing, that insulin never gets a rest. And the cells then, they're treating insulin like, an irritant, right? Like
Yeah.
the cells like don't want any more insulin. They're full. They're like, become essentially resistant to insulin. And so what happens is the sugar continues to circulate throughout the body, the insulin continues to circulate throughout the body, and what you have is a recipe for poor health, inflammation, and weight gain right there.
Yeah. So, I'm getting some questions. Someone is asking, is sugar labeled as sugar or some kind of unrecognizable formula, as it often in the case of food ingredients? When we see in the labels like the sugar,
Yeah,
that's
right.
like the whole story, right?
Yes, it's really sad, but if I don't know what country, if you're in the United States, look under added sugars. If
Okay.
it has zero added sugars, you're good to go. But if it shows added sugars, then obviously you know that it's not good. So, but there are another way to tell because they have probably almost 100 or over 100 names of different sugars that most people don't even know, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but the ending OSE, like sucrose,
Yeah.
maltose, things like that of that nature, are not healthy, and they are sugar
Ah,
based.
okay. That's a good
Yeah.
trick. And also, like you were like, after I want to talk about keto in
Mhm.
deeper, but before that, like talking about sweets and treats. Sometimes when we go to the store, we see all those like, chocolate treats where it says keto. Does that mean that it's healthy? Or like we have to be careful about who's doing it and, like if we have to check the label for something special?
Must check the label.
Okay.
They're like I mentioned earlier, they're getting better with their keto product. They're becoming real, but still, for the most part, the majority of products out there labeled keto are not. They are very high in carbohydrates. Like, for example, you'll have a pizza, frozen pizza. It'll say keto because it's made with cauliflower crust, right?
Yeah.
And oh no, it's not keto. It's 45 grams of carbohydrates per slice. And so that's a real problem. And that's sad because so many people are putting their trust into these food manufacturers labeling. And when in fact they're tricking people and they're eating their food and they're causing inflammation, weight gain, and more. So really important to look. If it were really keto, it would probably be more like 5 grams of carbohydrates per slice.
Okay. And like always the fiber has to be higher than the carb because like you calculate the net carbs,
Mhm.
right? When you try to
Yeah,
be in the ketosis.
right. That's not always like a necessary, but generally, when you have a product, if let's say, trying to think of something that has carbohydrates, but let's just say almond flour
Okay.
um, has, you know, 12 grams of fiber, right? And it has 6 carbs. So what you do is you subtract the 6 from the 12, and you have 6 grams of net carbs
Okay.
because the fiber never breaks down, and fiber is considered a carbohydrate, and that's why it's included in the total. So, and also remember that fiber feeds your healthy gut bugs, and that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk about gut too, because what is like, like people have like all those like gut problems, the gut health. Can you explain us what is it?
Yes, but first, I forgot to address the oil and the sugar, right? So the two
Okay.
foods, if you want to optimize your health today, drop the sugar. We talked about that. But the oils you must drop are like corn oil, vegetable oil, canola oil, and soy oil. These oils are examples of very unhealthy processed foods that, by their very nature, the way they've been processed with all sorts of deodorizers and things of that nature are inflammatory in and of themselves. But when you heat these products, it's even worse. Okay. So
Okay.
if you knew how canola oil was, it smells so horrendous, they have to deodorize it in order for people to actually think it's an appealing product. And that's pretty much how it goes with all these products. But there's an abundance of research out there showing that these oils are very, very bad. And one reason is because the types of fats that we choose to eat are stored in our cellular membrane, okay, and in the matrix of the cell. The cellular membrane is where your health happens. It's crucial for it to be healthy. When we eat these oils, it stiffens the cellular membrane and the inside of the cell where nutrients can't get to the cell as easily. And
Mhm.
so this is why people who eat these refined processed foods that are packed with these oils and cook with them tend to have health problems down the road.
So they should use avocado oil,
Yep.
coconut.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Avocado, coconut, yeah, olive oil is fantastic.
but
Oil.
to cook, can they cook with olive oil? So it shouldn't be virgin, right?
No, it should be. I
It
mean,
should be
it's, you
virgin.
don't,
Okay.
yeah, olive oil, you don't want to heat it to a high heat. A low heat it can take, but not a high heat. Coconut oil and avocado oil, for example, are excellent at high heat. Lard is actually a healthier choice, and tallow, beef tallow, is a healthier choice because they're saturated fats, right? And so they don't break down. That's the problem
Yeah.
with many oils, is that they break down when they're heated, causing inflammation in the body. And so butter is another healthy choice. Ghee is
Yeah.
another healthy
The
choice for people.
clarified butter. Yeah.
Yeah, duck fat is another one. And so a lot of people are afraid of the saturated fat myth, but that is a whole other show we can go into.
Yeah, we'll do that if you want. We're
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
just take our second break. We're talking with Lori Shemek about foods to eat, foods to not eat, to lose weight, of course, but also to fight inflammation and to reverse it. Let's talk more about it when we come back from the break.
You're listening to Say Yes, Be Happy. To reach our show today, we invite you to phone in to 1-866-472-5788. That's 1-866-472-5788. Or send an email to bvg@thebon-vivantgirl.com. Now, back to Say Yes, Be Happy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nathalie Botros, your host. We're talking with Lori Shemek about fighting inflammation and weight loss and eating healthy and finding the best way to be healthy and happy. Just before the break, she was telling us about the oils and butters that we should use. It's olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, and then ghee. And then what was it? The other butter that you said? It was really good.
Duck fat,
Duck
actually.
fat.
Yes.
And lard also, you told us.
Right, and lard. And I know a lot of people are nervous about that. And moderation is always important with anything really,
Yeah.
most anything. And so just read the research, and you'll see where it has changed a lot. We now know that saturated fat is actually a very healthy fat for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, like we everybody says keto. Keto, a lot of people think that keto is eating bacon and cheese all day long. Could you explain that? It's not that. It's like it goes a
No.
bit deeper.
Yes, that's a really great point. Yes, keto is essentially reducing your carbohydrate intake, 50 grams of carbs below, ideally 20 grams or lower, which is ridiculous because one half a bagel has 45 grams of carbohydrates, right? So you think about how low that is. And I say ridiculous in the sense that most people it's very foreign to think like that. And however, the ketogenic diet is extremely healthy, and it is not a meat packed necessarily diet. It is not like the Atkins diet, that was pretty much meat centered.
Mhm.
The ketogenic diet adds protein to create satiation, and obvious reasons why protein is good for you, your muscle growth, your immune health, all of that. But it also is packed with non-starchy carbohydrates, all vegetables, and except for sweet potatoes and squash and things like that. So there's an enormous amount of a very healthy fat. So you have a lot of fat, you have a moderate amount of protein, and you have as many vegetables as you want, right? So it's a very healthy diet. And so we started to talk about the gut health factor. The
Hmm.
ketogenic diet has been shown to be very beneficial in optimizing gut health. In fact, it's promoting a lot of really healthy strains and species of bacteria within the gut, in a different amount of them, different types of them, and that's what you want to optimize health in white.
Yeah. And so I understand that. If people like cannot get all the food, are there like any supplements that you can advise? For example, I remember when I was trying to, I want to see a doctor, and the doctor gave me metformin for the insulin resistance. And they say
Right.
like it's actually a medicine. I know that a lot of dietitians are giving it now more and more. It's normally done for given to people who have diabetes,
Diabetes.
but they start giving to people so you kind of protect yourself. It's like, it's what do you think about
Yeah.
that?
So, yes, I think I personally wouldn't take metformin right now as just as an anti-aging um, protocol, but metformin is fantastic for people with diabetes. Research out there shows it does, promote cellular resilience, reduced insulin. You remember that insulin sensitivity, that's what
Yes,
it's doing.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's going to promote longevity, would hopefully promote longevity and other things. There's a couple dark sides to metformin in terms of aging, anti-aging, but suffice it to say, it's a lot of anti-aging people, biohackers are using the metformin as a tool, right? But there's a supplement called berberine,
I was
which,
gonna say that. I started taking
yeah.
that. I was like,
Oh,
berberine
really?
is better.
Yeah.
It's natural.
It's natural. It doesn't have any side effects. Where metformin is tamping down on the muscle growth when you work out and your workouts in general. Berberine doesn't do that. In fact, it enhances that. And so, berberine is excellent for diminishing belly fat, reducing the belly fat, reversing inflammation, and balancing blood sugar, promoting insulin sensitivity. It's really, if you have PCOS, it's fantastic for that. It's protective against breast cancer. It has a litany, like a wish list, essentially, of the things that research has shown it can do. It's a bit pricey, but it's worth it in terms of optimizing health.
And like, is there like a gram, like how much shall we take? Like, I don't, because like some people like they overdo as well. So what is like
Yeah,
the good
that's a good
dosage?
point because people think a little works and a whole lot will.
Yeah.
The dosages on the packages are generally 500 2 times a day or 1500 3 times a day.
Okay.
Um, there's a couple manufacturers out there that have 900 milligrams, which is close to 1 gram. So per capsule. So I would just take one once a day in that
Okay.
case.
And then like before the meals, right? So it works better, or like it doesn't matter
It, after a meal
after a meal.
is,
And
yeah.
talking about like all those vitamins, I want to
Yeah.
know what is the difference between probiotic and prebiotic, because like there's
Oh,
always
yeah.
like a big mixture, like people get
Yeah.
confused.
Yeah. That's important because many people have never even heard of a prebiotic for
Yeah.
one. But so there's to differentiate them. A probiotic is a live microorganism that, when healthy ones are in abundance in our gut, promotes weight loss, weight maintenance, optimal health, brain health, and mood stabilization. All of those things we are generating, via these healthy gut bugs. Unfortunately, most people are walking around with a belly full of unhealthy gut bugs,
Hmm.
and this is not good. This is literally a problem. And the reason they have so many, it's out of whack essentially, is because they're feeding the unhealthy gut bugs with sugar and other refined processed foods. So the sugar in the white flour, for example, literally feed these unhealthy gut bugs. They need it in order to thrive and survive. So you know that the standard American diet is high in these carbohydrates, refined foods. It's people are they're stopping through the fast food place. Just eating these types of foods is feeding their unhealthy gut bugs. And so that's why I say, look at the labels, look at the sugar, because if you're eating these things, you're feeding those gut bugs. It's so important to feed them the right food. So prebiotics are fibers from vegetables mostly that feed these really healthy gut bugs that optimize health, that optimize brain health, and weight. We have a clear gut-brain connection. We found science has found evidence showing that specific strains of bacteria actually significantly, in fact, reduce anxiety and depression. One study showed by 50% significantly reduced depression and 55% reduced anxiety on anxiety scores. So that is something really important to look for, but you want to feed them, right? So look for foods, prebiotic foods, such as any vegetable, but ideally garlic, leeks, onions, bananas, beans, Jerusalem artichokes, dandelion greens are fantastic. Dark chocolate is a prebiotic fiber, in fact. And so these are examples of foods that will feed your healthy gut bugs. And apple peels.
Okay.
The apple peel is excellent for your gut health.
And then you take the probiotics, and then I know that when you go to buy, you have all those billions. What does that mean? What someone has to look for?
Right. That's a really good question, because a lot of people think that the more you take, the better off you are. And that is not true. So we have something called CFUs. And these are usually 1 billion CFUs, 100 billion CFUs.
Yeah.
And this is why it's super important to make sure that you know what health conditions you want to support, right? So if it's your immunity, you want to support that more, then you look for a lactobacillus rhamnosus, for example, on the product label. And also remember the strain, which in this case would be CRL 1505. So if it has a strain, that's the number and the name, you're generally good to go, because that means that it's been recognized, characterized as one that produces health benefits.
Okay.
And so, for example, back to the anxiety and stress, there's the Lactobacillus helveticus or the Bifidobacterium longum. Those are two examples of a probiotic that can reduce stress and anxiety. And you want to look for that too.
Okay, great. So any other supplements, vitamins, or anything that you advise our listeners to absolutely take every day?
Yes, absolutely. So with your doctor's approval, I recommend curcumin or turmeric, but curcumin is the main activating compound, and magnesium, vitamin D3, those three. And I'm just thinking if there's anything else I'm missing.
Arginine?
No, we don't need that.
Okay.
That is a very good one, though. That's going to really benefit blood flow throughout the body to brain health as well. And the other thing too is if you're over 40, you need to keep your muscle mass up, right? So adding in more protein, and if that's with protein powders, that is excellent to do, because what happens is as we age, starting earlier, but usually after 40, it starts to really speed up. We lose hydrochloric acid. We can't break down the protein as easily. So if we take, say, amino acids or essential amino acids, that really makes a huge difference in the outcome of maintaining that mass or building that muscle mass.
That's amazing. So we're almost out of time, and I have to say my goodbye, blah, blah. Just before we go, where can people find you and get in touch with you?
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Yes, they can find me at drlorishemek.com, and they can find me on Facebook, Dr. Lori Shemek, on Twitter at Lori Shemek, and they can also find me on Instagram at Dr. Lori Shemek. I'm all over.
And guys, you know me. I'm following her everywhere. We follow each other, so you can find her through me
Yes,
too.
we
And I will
do.
put her website. So it's sadly another show that is almost at the end. I think I need 2 hour shows because I have so many more questions. Thank you
Oh,
everyone for tuning in. Thank you so much, Lori, to be with me
thank
today.
you
And
so
everyone who
much.
listens to us, please go to Apple Podcasts and rate and comment about my show. And I wish you an amazing week. Next week, we're going to talk about sex, finding happiness in sex with Lou Paget. And I'm just wishing you a happy week. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
What do you have to lose? Say yes. Be happy.